Hey there, I'm Ga, and welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the fascinating, the forgotten, and the frankly unbelievable corners of human history. Now, when you think war, your mind probably conjures images of epic, sprawling conflicts. Years of struggle, generations affected, the whole 9 yards, right? We picture the Napoleonic Wars, the World Wars, conflicts that carved themselves into the very bedrock of our global timeline. But what if I told you that some wars, some incredibly impactful and historically significant conflicts, were over before you could even finish a decent cup of coffee? Or in one case, before you could even finish listening to this sentence properly if I spoke really slowly. Today we're not just dipping our toes into military history, we're taking a high-speed plunge into the world of These aren't just minor skirmishes, these are bona fide wars, declarations, ultimatums, military action, the works, that concluded with astonishing, sometimes bewildering speed. We're talking about conflicts that blazed into existence and then vanished, sometimes in a matter of hours or even minutes. From a war that lasted a mere 38 minutes, yes, you heard that right, less time than it takes to watch an episode of your favorite sitcom, to another that ended with basically a single decisive shot, these micro-wars often had macro consequences. They toppled regimes, redrew borders, or simply served as brutal, swift exclamation points in the grand, ongoing sentence of international relations. So, buckle up, because we're about to embark on a rapid-fire tour of these blink-and-you'll-miss-them battles. We'll explore the why, the how, and the what happened next of these incredibly brief but often surprisingly pivotal moments. We're going to unpack 5 such stories, and trust me, they're wild. Stick around as we unpack these incredible tales of swift conflict, all in the next 10 minutes or so. It's going to be a whirlwind, so don't blink. Let's get into it. Let's kick things off with the undisputed champion, the Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896. This conflict holds the Guinness World Record for the shortest war in history, clocking in at just 38 minutes. Fought on August 27, 1896, it pitted the British Empire against the Sultanate of Zanzibar. The affair was a succession crisis with a dose of imperial strong-arming. When Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini died, his nephew Khalid bin Bargash declared himself Sultan. The British preferred Hamoud bin Mohammed, who aligned with their interests. The British issued an ultimatum, but Khalid refused. At 9 a.m., the British opened fire. The bombardment was swift and devastating. By 9:40 a.m. the war was over and the British installed their preferred sultan. In 1967, a conflict reshaped the Middle East. The Six-Day War's opening act was a lightning-fast air campaign, Israel's preemptive strike against Egypt on June 5, 1967. In just 6 hours, the strategic landscape was dramatically altered. Tensions had been escalating for months. Nasser moved troops into Sinai, expelled UN peacekeepers, and closed the Straits of Tiran. Israel launched Operation Focus to neutralize the Egyptian Air Force. Nearly 200 Israeli aircraft took off in waves. They flew low to avoid radar detection. The first wave hit 11 Egyptian air bases. Runways were cratered and aircraft destroyed. By midday, the bulk of the Egyptian Air Force was annihilated. Israel's air superiority influenced the ground war. Israeli ground forces advanced with impunity. Those 6 hours were pivotal in the Six-Day War. Now let's move to the Indian subcontinent and a conflict sometimes dubbed This refers to the Battle of Garibpur, a fierce but remarkably brief engagement fought on November 20th to 21st, 1971. While it technically spanned parts of 2 days, the main decisive action was concentrated within a single, intense period. This battle was a significant precursor to the full-scale Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, which ultimately led to the independence of Bangladesh. The backdrop to Garibpur is the escalating crisis in East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. West Pakistan's military crackdown on the Bengali population in East Pakistan had led to a massive refugee crisis, with millions fleeing into India and the rise of the Mukti Bahini, a Bengali guerrilla resistance movement. The village of Garibpur, located in what was then East Pakistan near the Indian border, held significant strategic importance. On the morning of November 20th, India's 14th Battalion of the Punjab Regiment, supported by a squadron of 14 PT-76 amphibious tanks from the 45th Cavalry Regiment, launched an offensive to capture Garibpur. The initial Indian advance was met with Pakistani infantry, but the real test was yet to come, as Pakistani armor was also moving to intercept them. The Pakistani response involved elements of their 107th Infantry Brigade, crucially supported by a squadron of American-made M24 Chaffee tanks from the 3rd Independent Armored Squadron. The fighting was intense and raged throughout the day. The Indian infantry and tanks worked in coordination to assault Pakistani positions. The tank crews on both sides displayed considerable courage, maneuvering and firing in difficult conditions. According to Indian accounts, their PT-76S, despite being outgunned by some contemporary tanks, proved effective in this particular engagement, successfully knocking out several Pakistani Chaffees. By the end of November 21st, after roughly a day of concentrated fighting, the battle was largely decided. Indian forces had successfully captured Garibpur and the surrounding area, securing their strategic objective. The Battle of Garibpur was a clear tactical victory for India. It was one of the first major land engagements that foreshadowed the larger war that would officially erupt just a couple of weeks later, on December 3, 1971. From the subcontinent, we now journey to Europe in the early 1990s, a period of immense geopolitical upheaval. Our next conflict is also known as the Slovenian War of Independence. Fought from June 27 to July 7, 1991, this brief but pivotal war marked the violent beginning of the breakup of Yugoslavia and the birth of a new European nation. The stage was set on June 25, 1991, when Slovenia, along with Croatia, declared independence from the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The JNA, one of Europe's largest armies at the time, was ordered to secure Slovenia's border crossings with Italy, Austria, and Hungary, and to reassert federal control. The assumption in Belgrade, and perhaps among many international observers, was that the JNA would quickly overwhelm any Slovenian resistance. What the JNA encountered was not a cowed populace, but a surprisingly well-organized and highly motivated resistance. The Slovenians had been preparing for such a contingency. Their strategy wasn't to defeat the JNA in conventional battles, an impossible task, but to bog it down, disrupt its operations, and make the cost of occupation unacceptably high, both militarily and politically. They employed classic asymmetric warfare tactics, roadblocks using trucks and buses, ambushes on JNA columns, and attacks on isolated JNA units. Crucially, the Slovenian leadership, under President Milan Kukan, maintained remarkable unity and resolve. The Slovenian media played a vital role in galvanizing public support and countering JNA propaganda. Ordinary Slovenian citizens also participated, forming human shields, arguing with JNA soldiers, and providing intelligence to the TOS. The JNA, designed for large-scale conventional warfare against external threats, found itself ill-suited for this kind of internal security operation against a determined populace. Its heavy tanks and armored vehicles were often confined to roads, making them vulnerable to ambushes. Logistical support was poor, and coordination between different JNA units was often lacking. After just 10 days of fighting, a ceasefire was brokered through the Brioni Agreement on July 7, 1991. The JNA agreed to withdraw its forces from Slovenia within 3 months, and Slovenia agreed to a 3-month moratorium on implementing its independence. For Slovenia, it was a stunning victory. The 10-day war proved that sometimes David really can get the better of Goliath. Rewinding to the early 19th century, the British attack on Berbera in January 1827 was a swift colonial action. This 2-day conflict took place on the Somali coast. It was a punitive expedition, a classic example of gunboat diplomacy to protect British trade interests. Berbera was a significant trading port, connecting Africa with Arabia and India. British merchants, especially from the East India Company, were active in these waters. They were sensitive to threats to their shipping. In 1825, a British merchant brig was involved in a dispute at Berbera. Accounts differ on the exact nature of the disagreement. The ship was reportedly plundered, and its crew mistreated by the Haber Awol clan. The East India Company was not prepared to let this slide. In January 1827, Captain James Brisbane led a small naval squadron, dispatched by the Bombay Marine. The force included HMS Tamar and the cruiser Koot. The operation began on January 10, 1827. The British bombarded Berbera's coastal defenses, then sent a landing party ashore. Their objectives were to destroy fortifications and burn vessels that could be used for piracy. By January 11th, the action was complete. The entire operation lasted around 2 days. So, there you have it. From a mere 38 minutes of imperial flexing in Zanzibar to 10 intense days that birthed a new European nation in Slovenia, these incredibly short wars pack a surprising historical punch. They prove, quite dramatically, that the duration of a conflict doesn't always correlate with its impact. Whether it was a preemptive strike reshaping regional power dynamics in 6 hours, a single day's battle setting the stage for a war of liberation, or a 2-day punitive expedition reinforcing colonial dominance, these brief but brutal episodes reshaped nations, toppled leaders, or sent undeniable messages across the geopolitical chessboard. History, it turns out, doesn't always need years or even months to make a profound and lasting impact. Sometimes, just a few hours or even a commercial break's worth of time can do the trick. These stories, I think, challenge our conventional notions of warfare. They remind us that conflict can take many forms, and that speed, surprise, and technological disparity can often be as decisive as sheer numbers or prolonged campaigns. They're also a testament to the complexities of history, where a seemingly minor event can have ripples that extend far beyond its immediate time frame and geographical confines. Each of these micro-wars, in its own way, offers a concentrated dose of the political, social, and technological forces that have shaped our world. Which of these lightning-fast conflicts surprised you the most, or which one do you think had the most disproportionate impact for its length? I'd love to hear your thoughts and any other examples of super short wars you know of, so please drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this whirlwind tour through some of history's briefest battles, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on more wild and wonderful history stories. Thanks so much for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.